Hello and welcome back to The Artist's Way with me, Veronica, aka Vespertilio. I am an Italian comic book author, tarot and oracle deck creator, and your spooky art teacher.
It's me again, yours truly.
This is episode 6 of this series, and as usual, if you don't know what this is about, I highly recommend you check this video first, and from here you'll be able to get access to the whole playlist about this series. Whoa! Episode 6! We're officially halfway through The Artist's Way. That's insane. So this week was quite challenging for me. I admit I struggled with this week, and for the first time I wasn't able to do all of the tasks, and spoiler for the check-in, I actually skipped my morning pages once. So I believe it's worth starting right away with this week's reflections, because that's a lot of things worth talking about. This week's chapter is recovering a sense of abundance. This week you tackle a major creative block: money. You are asked to really look at your own ideas around God, money, and creative abundance. The essays will explore the ways in which your attitudes limit abundance and luxury in your current life. You will be introduced to counting, a blockbusting tool for clarity and right use of fonts. This week may feel volatile. And it definitely felt like that. In fact, as the days were going, I started realizing, oh my God, I'm not doing the tasks. Oh my God, but I'm not doing this thing that this chapter said I should have done. I have to say that this came at a time where I had scheduled this week to tie loose ends, basically. So by the day you'll be watching this, I will start a designated period of time that will go through quite a few months in which I'll prioritize my art, my comic book project, and my creativity. I have done all of the sponsorship work I had left. I am currently working on a couple of commissions that I still haven't done. So this week I was focused on doing all of these things so that I would start this new period of time without all of those things undone, let's say. Since the very first time I did The Artist's Way, which was basically a year ago, I have got into the habit of counting my expenses, and it's something that I've never stopped doing. Now, I want to be very clear about this. I do not count every single thing, every single cent I spend as it is suggested in this week's chapter. I basically keep a table file, let's say, where I have all of the sources for my income, basically. Each month I write down not only my savings, but also the money that I know for sure it's gonna come. And every time I spend my money, unexpected expenses and stuff like that, I would go there and check once again all of my funds and update each row of this table, track how much I have in total. Now, what I do is I have a certain amount of money as my savings. I know that I can't go under a certain amount of money because then I'd be tapping in those savings, basically. Another thing that I kept doing is embracing my idea of abundance and luxury. I would deny myself the simplest things, like I couldn't waste money in nice bedding for my bedroom, but I could waste money on things that were literally a waste of money. I learned to purchase things more intentionally and to give myself the luxury, basically, of what I believe is luxury. Again, to me, luxury is getting my new bedding, basically. Or, as you know, I like to go thrifting, and this is one of my very last purchases, and I absolutely adore this. I have no idea how those are called in English, but this should be for butter, but I actually use it to store my tarot cards. The smaller decks, those are the cheap ones. This is the one I use the most right now. I got it on a pretty sketchy website before I realized that was sketchy. And then I also have the fake edition of my tarot deck because, yeah, I got it now, so why not using it? As you can see, I'm not like buying designer stuff or things like that. It's just, yeah, my own idea of luxury, and that is what is really important about this week's chapter. Now, this week I basically skipped most of the tasks, but something really peculiar happened to me regarding abundance this week that I want to discuss. So I kept counting my expenses, buying things more intentionally. I kept embracing my idea of luxury. That made me way more responsible with my money, because I realized that I could indeed save my money to the point where I saved enough to go for a week in Scotland with my sister. I still can surround myself with things that make me happy and that inspire me. Another thing that I kept doing, that right now I'm doing a bit more, if I have to be honest, is to give away stuff that is not serving me, that I don't use. So for instance, I have a bunch of art supplies around my house that I bought but never used, or that brands has sent me to test and review for sponsorships. And as you know, my preferred drawing technique is ink on paper, so I've got a lot of things that I sincerely don't use, especially on a daily basis. So what I'm doing is I'm gifting those things to friends who would like to embrace their creativity, do more art and stuff like that. So I gifted 2 boxes of markers to friends of mine. I have a big sketchbook with another box of markers that I want to gift to the daughter of my parents' neighbor. I am selling few pieces of clothing that I never wore or that I barely wore on Vinted, which is the thrifting app that I mostly use. So there's a lot going on that's the result of what I did in my first round with chapter 6 of The Artist's Way. But a brand new thing surfaced this week, and that was crazy, if I have to be honest. This time with chapter 6, I recovered a very particular sense of abundance regarding a very specific area of my life. So some of you may know that my other great passion is music, is singing. And I started to become a musical performer before becoming a comic artist, and that is a part of my life that I had left behind. I used to try writing songs, but then I realized that it was easier for me and it was more natural for me to write poetry. And so I started embracing that other side of myself. I started taking singing lessons again because I wasn't happy that I was neglecting that side of me. But I still was doing it inside of my comfort zone, let's say. So, it's just that little hobby of mine that I don't want to lose. So I'm going to go to singing lessons and sing a bunch of covers, enjoy my time singing whenever I have singing lessons, basically. And that was it. At the beginning of this year, I actually promised myself to post a cover on my second channel, which is Vespertilio Sings, at least once a week. Needless to say, I completely failed this task, this promise with myself, because I felt so scared. I felt unworthy of this task. Because 2 main limiting beliefs were radicated within me, which were: 1, I'm too old for this. There's no space in my life for this thing right now. And 2, I'm too old for this. There's no space for me in this thing in the world. It's too late. This week, I gave myself permission to be a beginner. I gave myself permission to have fun. I gave myself permission to write songs. I write poetry. I can sing. What if I try to put those things together without thinking too much about it, without overthinking the process? If I hear a melody in my mind and the words come naturally to me, why deny myself that? And they probably won't sound good or great, but that's fine, because this is the first time in my life that I am allowing myself to embark this journey. I wrote that down, but I want to read it to you because I think I phrased it in a way that was more understandable. I wrote it in Italian, so I might need to translate this to you. Let me see what I wrote. Abundance for me manifested in realizing that there's space for me too to be a singer, and that in my life there's still space for music. I gave myself permission to be a beginner and to be imperfect, and I'm showing up to the world for who I am. This week I wrote 2 songs. I think I wrote 3 in the end. And I recorded a cover, and I have already arranged the instrumental for another one. My artist date was about music. I wrote and recorded songs. That also inspired me to create art for the thumbnails of my covers and for the covers of my songs. So, I recovered a sense of abundance towards the space that I can take up in the world as a singer and a musician and a self-taught songwriter. And I've recovered a sense of abundance regarding the space that singing, songwriting, and music can take in my life. There's enough space for me, and there's enough space for these things in my life. One thing I want to show you, 2 actually. So this is a toy microphone I've had for quite a few years. I have personalized it. As you can see, there's little bats here and little bat wings here. This actually gives you a little reverb when you sing into this. And I only use this for theatrical purposes. So I actually have a professional, it's not a very expensive microphone, but it is a high quality one. And I use this just for performance, let's say, in the videos. I want to embrace also that side of me because I can get very creative with this kind of things. And while right here, I tend to be clean, let's say, with how I set my videos because most of them are educational. On that channel, I really think I can get more creative with the way I shoot my videos. And again, I want to be free to get messy with them. I used to sing my covers and record myself with the microphone in front of me, etc. But why should I do that when I have a lot of pretty things that I can use to set up the scene, etc. So one thing I came up with literally this morning, I might as well use anything. I could sing literally on anything because this is fake. It's just for theatrical purposes. So I could use these and sing on these, for example. I decided to create something, and my first thought was using a flower. So I have my fake tulips on my art altar right here, and I was like, I can use one of those. And so I started crafting this thing, and I ended up with this. So this is made from this it is actually a cocktail spoon. It looks like an arrow, and I used it as a base. And then with this black ribbon, I cut this myself. I tied on it the tulip and these other fake flowers that I had in my house. So I made this with things I already had. I didn't buy anything. This is going to be basically my microphone in all of my new musical videos. And I think it is really pretty, and I'm very proud of myself for this. I gathered a bunch of stuff I already had in my house, and I created something new that is going to bring me a lot of joy. I'm very happy about this little object of mine. It is like my personal magic wand for music right now. So yeah, that's very special. So this week's chapter is really heavy on the concept of God. As we explored in previous episodes, God is not necessarily the Christian God. It can be goddess, it can be mind, it can be myself. It is basically your inner creative source, your inner creator. With that said, this is not the first time that the author asks us to call upon these God or good. And it is just a way of embracing your creative self, starting from kind of spiritual practice, which is the whole point of this book. This chapter dives deeply on this aspect. So let's start with the first paragraph, which is the great creator. I'm a believer, Nancy declares. I just don't believe God gets involved with money. Although she doesn't recognize it, Nancy carries 2 self-sabotaging beliefs. She believes not only that God is good, too good to do money, but also the money is bad. I literally wrote down, I'm still struggling with this. For many of us, raised to believe that money is the real source of security, a dependence on God feels foolhardy, suicidal, even laughable. We are the ones who keep clothes on our backs. We're the ones who buy the groceries. And we will pursue our art, we tell ourselves, when we have enough money to do it easily. Also, this used to be one of the reasons why I would neglect myself to do music, because I always thought I didn't have the resources for it. I can do music on my tablet, on GarageBand, on a good microphone, but that is not a studio microphone. Turns out I can. When we have enough money to do it easily. And when will that be? We want a God that feels like a fat paycheck and a license to spend as we please. Listening to the siren song of more, we are deaf to the still small voice waiting in our soul to whisper, "You're enough." Maybe God would feed and clothe us in a pinch, but painting supplies, a museum tour of Europe, dance classes, God's not about to spring for those, we tell ourselves. We cling to our financial concerns as a way to avoid not only our art, but also our spiritual growth. Our faith is in the dollar, or the euro in my case. I have to keep a roof over my head, we say. Nobody's going to pay me to be more creative. Most of us harbor a secret belief that work has to be work and not play, and that anything we really want to do, like write, act, dance, must be considered frivolous and be placed a distant second. This is not true. We are operating out of the toxic old idea that God's will for us and our will for us are at the opposite ends of the table. Thinking like this is grounded in the idea that God is a stern parent with very rigid ideas about what's appropriate for us. This week, in your morning pages, write about the God you do believe in and the God you would like to believe in. For some of us, this means, what if God's a woman and she's on my side? For others, it is a God of energy. For still others, a collective of higher forces moving us towards our highest good. What would a non-toxic God think of your creative goals? Might such a God really exist? If so, would money or your job or your lover remain your higher power? Many of us equate difficulty with virtue and art with fooling around. Hard work is good. A terrible job must be building our moral fiber. Something, a talent for painting, say, that comes to us easily and seems compatible with us must be some sort of cheap trick, not to be taken seriously. We secretly think that God wants us to be broke if we are going to be so decadent as to want to be artists. Looking at God's creation, it is pretty clear that the Creator itself did not know when to stop. There is not one pink flower or even 50 pink flowers, but hundreds. Snowflakes, of course, are the ultimate exercise in sheer creative glee. Not two alike. This creator looks suspiciously like someone who just might send us support for our creative ventures. Expecting divine help, we tend to receive it. The God who has a job for us, the God who has fulfilling work, the God who holds abundance and dignity, who holds a million possibilities, the key to every door, this God can sound suspiciously like a flim-flam man. And so, when it comes time for us to choose, we often choose to ignore the dream and blame our continued misery to God. We act like it's God's fault. We didn't go to Europe, take that painting class, go on that photo shoot. In truth, we, not God, have decided not to go. We have tried to be sensible rather than see if the universe might not have supported some healthily extravagance. The Creator may be our father, mother, source, but it is surely not that father, mother, church, teacher, friend here on earth who have instilled in us their ideas of what is sensible for us. Do you still think there is some moral virtue in being martyred? If you want to make some art, make some art. Just a little art, just 2 sentences, 1 rhyme. Making art begins with getting into the now and enjoying your day. It begins with giving yourself some small treats and breaks. This is extravagant, but so is God. is a good attitude to take when treating your artist to small bribes and beauties. I wrote that and put it on a sticky note on my computer. In my case, this is extravagant, but so is my goddess. As you expect God to be more generous, God will be able to be more generous to you. What we really want to do is what we are really meant to do. When we do what we are meant to do, money comes to us, doors open for us, we feel useful, and the work we do feels like play to us. We will see how our ideas about money shape our ideas about creativity. Luxury. For those of us who have become artistically anorectic, a little authentic luxury can go a long way. Because art is born in expansion, in a belief in sufficient supply, it is critical that we pamper ourselves for the sense of abundance it brings to us. What constitutes pampering? That will vary for each of us. All too often, we become blocked and blame it on our lack of money. This is never an authentic block. The actual block is our feeling of constriction, our sense of powerlessness. Art requires us to empower ourselves with choice. At the most basic level, this means choosing to do self-care. One of my friends is a world-famous artist of formidable talents. Why, he sometimes wonders to himself, does his life's work now feel so much like his life's work? Because he has denied himself luxury. This man enjoys all sorts of privileges, but what he doesn't enjoy is his life. He has denied himself the luxury of time. Time with friends, time with family, above all, time to himself with no agenda. His many former passions have dwindled to mere interests. He is too busy to enjoy pastimes. He tells himself he has no time to pass. The clock is ticking, and he is using it to get famous. Recently, I bought myself a horse, for the first time in a decade. On hearing the good news, my accomplished friend moved immediately into his wet blanket mode, cautioning, "Well, I hope you don't expect to get to ride it much or even see it much. As you get older, you do less and less of the things you enjoy. Life becomes more and more about doing what you must." I was not too daunted by this prognosis, but I was saddened by it. It reminded me of the vulnerability of all artists, even very famous ones, to the shaming. The "I should be working" side of themselves that discourages creative pleasures. In order to thrive as artists, and one could argue as people, we need to be available to the universal flow. When we put a stopper on our capacity for joy by anorectically declining the small gifts of life, we turn aside the larger gifts as well. What gives us true joy? This is the question to ask concerning luxury. And for each of us, the answer is very different. Fresh raspberries, an experience of abundance, cut up with a peach, poured over a scoop of ice cream. Music, buying a new recording a week. Crazy recordings, not just high art. A dime store set of watercolor paint, a deluxe Crayola set. But for many block creatives, it takes a little work to even imagine ourselves having luxury. Block creatives are often the Cinderellas of the world, focused on others at the expense of ourselves. We may even be threatened by the idea of spoiling ourselves for once. But focus on giving yourself the glass slipper. The second half of that fairy tale is great. What we are talking about when we discuss luxury is very often a shifting consciousness more than a flow. Although, as we acknowledge and invite what feels luxurious to us, we may indeed trigger an increased flow. Creative living requires the luxury of time, which we crave out for ourselves, even if it's 15 minutes for quick morning pages and a 10-minute mini bath after work. It's never 15 minutes for morning pages, by the way. More like 50, unless your pages are like this big. Creative living requires the luxury of space for ourselves, even if all we manage to carve out is one special bookshelf and a window sill that is ours. Remember that your artist is a youngster, and youngsters like things that are mine. My chair, my book, my pillow. Designating a few things special and yours alone can go a long way toward making you feel pampered. Much of what we do in a creative recovery may seem silly. Silly is a defense our wet blanket adult uses to squelch our artist child. Beware of silly as a word you toss at yourself. Yes, artist dates are silly. That's the whole point. Creativity lives in paradox. Serious art is born from serious play. Counting, an exercise. For the next week, you will be discovering how you spend your money. Buy a small pocket notepad and write down every nickel you spend. It doesn't matter what it is for, how tiny the purchase, how petty the amount. Each day, date a page and count what you bought, what you spent, where your money went, whether it was for groceries, lunch in a diner, a cab ride, subway fares, or a loan to your brother. Be meticulous, be thorough, and be non-judgmental. This is an exercise in self-observation, not self-flagellation. You may want to continue this practice for a full month or longer. It will teach you what you value in terms of your spending. Often, our spending differs from our real values. We fritter away cash on things we don't cherish and deny ourselves those things we do. For many of us, counting is a necessary prelude to learning creative learning. Money madness, an exercise. These are 20 prompts. So I read them all to you and you complete them. Feel free to pause this video, grab a pencil, a notepad, etc. Let's begin. 1. People with money are. 2. Money makes people. 3. I'd have more money if. 4. My dad thought money was. 5. My mom always thought money would. 6. In my family, money caused. 7. Money equals. 8. If I had money, I would. 9. If I could afford it, I would. 10. If I had some money, I would. 11. I'm afraid that if I had money, I would. 12. Money is. 13. Money causes. 14. Having money is not. 15. In order to have more money, I would need to. 16. When I have money, I usually. 17. I think money. 18. If I weren't so cheap, I would. 19. People think money. 20. Being broke tells me. And you complete these phrases. Number 8 was, for me, if I had money, I'd buy tickets to Scotland right now. And this time I wrote, I've been there. And with that, we're now to the weekly tasks. Now, as I anticipated, this week I was terrible at this and I basically skipped most of the tasks. I'm still going to read them all to you and then we'll get to the weekly check-in. Number 1, natural abundance. Oh, about this. These first 2 exercises, this week I couldn't do this, but I do this constantly. Can you see this like thing made with, I think is rope and wood? It's basically shelves. This is filled with various trinkets, sticks I collected in London and in Edinburgh. There's a flower that I picked at the Cemetery of Artists and Poets in Rome. There's a lot of rocks and fossil shells. I don't know if you know those, but they are shells that kind of melted with rocks and sand. And I have also broken shells and all sorts of stuff like that, and I collect usually. This time I didn't. I'm so sorry about that. Natural abundance. Find 5 pretty or interesting rocks. I enjoy this exercise particularly because rocks can be carried in pockets. They can be small, constant reminders of our creative consciousness. 2. Natural abundance. Pick 5 flowers or leaves. You may want to press this between wax paper and save them in a book. If you did this in kindergarten, that's fine. Some of the best creative play is done there. Let yourself do it again. Task number 3. Clearing. Throw out or give away 5 ratty pieces of clothing. So I'm doing this pretty often, but I didn't do it this week. Task number 4, creation. Bake something. If you have a sugar problem, make a fruit salad. Creativity does not have to always involve capital A art. Very often, the act of cooking something can help you cook something up in another creative mode. When in need, as a writer, I make soups and pies. I didn't do this either, so yeah. 5. Communication. Send postcards to 5 friends. This is not a good to choose exercise. Send to people you would love to hear from. And I didn't do this, but I actually asked one dear girlfriend of mine that lives pretty far away from my country. If she thought she would receive in a decent amount of time a postcard. So she gave me her address and we're going to experiment with that. So this next one is a task that I did. Favorites. List your favorites in the following categories: cars, dogs, flowers, trees, fruits, vegetables, desserts, entries, I don't know, musical groups, colors. Task number 7. Reread the basic principles. Do this once daily. Read an artist's prayer, yours from week 4 or mine on page 226, and do this once daily. I did this maybe 3 times this week. I forgot right away, and so I started the week having no memory of having to do this task. When I remembered, I managed to do it by listening to the ones I uploaded on my channel. So if you need help with this and you feel like it would be easier for you to listen to those instead of reading them, I leave linked down below both my video of the basic principles and my videos of the artist prayers. But yeah, I did it just 3 times this week. Number 8, clearing. Any new changes in your home environment? Make some. Yeah, I fixed a couple of things, I have to be honest. And also by getting this one, I had to rearrange a little my little art altar right here. So I did some minor changes, but I did some. 9, acceptance. Any new flow in your life? Practice saying yes to freebies. So apart from saying yes to myself regarding my music passion, like yesterday, when I was at this festival with my family, if like my mom would be like, "Oh, would you like to have a taste of this?" I would go, "Sure. If it's not spicy, I'm good with that." And so I would eat. Number 10, prosperity. Any changes in your financial situation or your perspective on it? Any new, even crazy ideas about what you would love doing? Pull images around this and add to your image file. And so, yeah, I think this speaks for itself. Yeah, task number 10. I definitely noticed this. I wouldn't call it a change, a shift in perspective on the space I can occupy as a singer and the space that music can occupy in my life. And with that said, let's get to the weekly check-in. How many days this week did you do your morning pages? Have you used them yet to think about creative luxury for yourself? How was the experience for you? You know what I started doing lately? I started getting to the last page of my morning pages and write poetry in it. As you know, I'm pretty spiritual, also in other ways. So I often write poems in forms of prayers, or you can say it also the other way around. So prayers in form of poems. You know what? I'll read this to you. This is the one I wrote this morning. This is for everyone, and you'll know why. So feel free to use it if you want. I called it a prayer for attention. Attention, oh, attention, please. Hear ye, hear ye. My art shines bright, my words are strong, my teaching's clear, my voice makes songs. I create dawn till dusk, make art of the land. I speak up my teachings and sing to myself. I cannot keep my talents caged. I'm moon and sun's daughter, a star on stage. But in the void, my voice sounds quieter. I need my sisters to shine brighter, to light my stage, to look at me, to fire my spark and feel the scene. And in return, I applaud them back by shining light on their own act. No star is worth keeping in cages, and we're all cheering from our stages. Hear ye, come by, my show now starts. Come see, come listen, sisters, stars. But as I told you earlier in this video, I actually skipped my morning pages yesterday. And if I have to be honest, the day before, I stopped at 2.5 pages. Did you do your artist date this week? Have you considered allowing yourself to? What did you do? How did it feel? It was amazing. It was this Friday and I already had done an artist date, but it was pretty simple. I just went by the sea and sketched in my sketchbook. But this Friday, I wanted to catch up with some work, but I actually went, you know what, I'm going to do some music. I'm going to work on my own songs and to record a cover of another song that I'd like to sing. And I did! I'm so happy about it. This video was done during my artist date, basically. I recorded the instrumental, I recorded the song, and I filmed the video. And I edited it, I think, also, and posted it. I did everything on that day. So, yeah. Did you experience any synchronicity this week? What was it? This one's crazy, okay? If you've been following me for a while, you know that I think the main reason why I got my first fountain pen is because at the same festival I attended yesterday, I did this Japanese oracle, and last year it said lucky object fountain pen. Here, I won't read it all to you because I want to see how this develops, but this I'm going to read to you. You know what we talked about at the beginning of this video? Listen closely. Do your best and act without thinking about negative things. For instance, do not use your age as an excuse. I read this and I was like, oh, girl. That was one of my main creative blocks. My age is one of my main creative blocks about music in particular. I basically revamped everything about my music channel. I redesigned the banner. I picked a new profile picture, and today I actually decided to make it match with my profile picture of my main channel. So now they are matching. This is so cute. So yeah, that was some crazy synchronicity. 4. Were there any other issues this week that you consider significant for your recovery? So I just did this video right here about dopamine detox from your phone, etc. And this week, I don't know if it was because I was PMSing or if it was because I was so stressed about all of those loose ends I needed to tie work-wise, but I felt pretty stressed. I slept horribly. There was one day in particular where I slept 3 hours. I went to sleep. I woke up at 2:30 in the morning and I was on my phone until 8 a.m. Once you do a step back, just do a little step forward. It's okay. So I started once again. I kept basically leaving my phone outside of the bedroom. And now I tend to read a little. And as you know, the only app that I have on my new tablet is Pinterest. So I can only navigate between those two. So it is way harder to indulge in endless scrolling. At one point, I'm always like, yeah, let's sleep. But I need to get better at that. It's still such a big issue. With the things that matter, it is so easy. Like when I work on my comic book, I don't tend to for my phone. And when I do music, I don't reach for my phone. I can use it to like look at chords of a song or the lyrics, but I don't get caught in endless scrolling while I do music. So yeah, I think that's because those are the things that I really care about in my life and as a creative person. With that said, thank you so much for watching this video. We're halfway through with the artist way. This is great and I can't believe we're already halfway through, and I really want to thank you all so much for joining me in this third rodeo with the artist way. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am. We may struggle a little, we may take a few steps back, but we're doing this, and so I'm really proud of all of us for that. Please feel free to check my singing channel, which is called Vespertilio Sings. And I really think this time I'm going to invest more time in this passion of mine. Feel free to check it out and subscribe if you think that's something that can interest you. And so what else to say? If you stayed till this point, thank you very much. I will see you very soon with more art videos. In the meantime, let's make art. Bye.